Good evening. Welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It is Monday, February 26, 2024. It is the study session at 6:01 PM. I'd first like to thank all of the commissioners for their service. In our study session, item A1 up first, receive comments from Mayor Terry Lynn. Take it away, Mayor.
Well, thank you. I'm not going to take long, but I had a few things that I was thinking about. Part of my voice, I got seasonal allergies, so please bear with me. But thinking about a few things that came about most recently. And so I just wanted to mention and then talk about maybe what we all could do, certainly council, maybe planning and zoning could do to try to anticipate, maybe head off some resident conflict, if you will. So, two items. One, were the 7-story apartment building over on off Luna Road. Okay, and it was approved and whatnot, but in that regard, I think we all need to do a better job of looking at where something is, or where something is proposed to be, and the effect that it might have on an existing neighborhood. Now, one of our issues in that particular instance was it was allowed by right there because it was originally approved before there were homes over there. So now you get into a chicken and the egg type thing, and does one supersede the other? And from the standpoint of being allowed, I understand that. And that, I will say, is more the textbook case of things. The practical side of things is if you lived in a home and looked up and saw a 7-story building in your backyard, is that what you want? And is it fair to do that to our residents? Flip side of that, is it fair to keep somebody from building a 7-story building when they were already allowed to do so? So I think that deserves somehow some discussion, because we will probably run into that again at some point in time as redevelopment continues to occur in our city. And so I just want us to be prepared for it, okay? The second one was the townhomes that were proposed for Golfing Green for Josie and Golfing Green. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned by everybody, especially the applicant who wanted to bring something forward, was going to invest heavily in the city, but it didn't meet with neighborhood approval. And partly because there was a lot of misinformation about it that was circulated, not by you all, not by council, but those who chose to have the information, but yet didn't basically acknowledge it, if you will. Because there were still people that referred to it as apartments. Wasn't apartments, okay? And we understand, I mean, there's a lot of people in the city who say no more apartments, and we really don't want apartments in the central core of the city. Townhomes, which are owner occupied, are a little bit different and deserve different consideration, but that's not the narrative that was promoted by certain residents. So, we had to deal with that, and it was, I'll say, pretty ugly at the last council meeting. And obviously, it wasn't approved, and so the applicant will go back and rework his plan or not and see what he wants to do. So the ball's in his court. But, if you look at from his standpoint, he needs to do a better job. Any applicant should invest the time to invite council members out to go see, invite neighbors, maybe go outside that 200-foot boundary, and see, okay, what's the line of sight? And who's going to be affected by this? And at least go to that first ring of people that may see something and get them to buy in on it. Because if they do and they're acceptant, then it really shouldn't be much of an issue because they have to look at it. So that's my own observation that I shared with the applicant. The other thing is, I think hopefully collaboratively, council and PNC can do a better job of trying to educate ourselves. Well, how do we do that? You know, we've had some tours before. I don't think we can ever have enough because there's always stuff going on in other communities that's worthy of taking a look at. Excuse me. So maybe putting together some other tours that we can include council members on, doing it, you know, on a Saturday morning or something like that, where we're not interfering with work schedules. Obviously, reading. You probably read more than anybody as part of your job, and Marcos too, but sharing that information with us. We are not professional planners. He is. You are the closest thing, but we are not. And so we need to be educated, and we meaning the council also. So, you know, I'm trying to learn from what we did and the issues that have come forward and want to try to make us all better. And certainly the council, so we don't have these fights that break out in the council chambers. You know, asking questions of staff and developers or applicants and making sure that you all are fully comfortable. Council needs to make sure that they're fully comfortable in what's coming before us. And that we're not just rubber stamping something because P and Z said it was okay, so we'll just do that. No, everybody needs to ask the question. And then, you know, one thing I was thinking about is, and it's sort of related to both the two issues, the apartments and the townhomes, but, you know, put yourself in somebody else's shoe. You know, we have a comprehensive plan, spells everything out. That's sort of the textbook, if you will, in my mind. That's the textbook case. Well, life is not always the textbook case. And so we oftentimes have to make adjustments. So if you lived here and this was going in next door, would you want it? How would it affect your property? How would you view it? And I think that's sort of the scale, if you will, that we also need to look at things, you know, not just to make sure they meet all the requirements for, you know, building conformance and whatnot, but is this something that's truly right for a neighborhood? And so in taking that a step further, we need to communicate that better to our development partners. And I say partners because they really are our partners. They're investing their money in our city, and they're ones taking the risk to make our city better. I heard, not at one of your meetings, but at one of our meetings, somebody say, so-and-so is going to make a whole bunch of money off this. Not my concern. I don't care. I don't care how much money you make. My concern is, are you doing something that's going to better our city and provide a benefit, a long-lasting benefit? I thought that was just totally out of line and uncalled for somebody to say that. Everybody's entitled to make a profit. We're all in business to make profits, okay? And I can't begrudge somebody for doing that. That's the American way. So, that's really just about all in a nutshell. And I just wanted to share my thoughts with you. And I think we will try to do a better job of educating council. But, you know, when there are opportunities to go out and study things and see things, I'd like to have more of that,
Absolutely,
if
Mayor.
possible.
Absolutely.
So,
Agreed.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for your comments. If I heard you correctly, you're concerned about adjacencies. That's the term we use
Sure.
in planning. And then also, of course, quality of life for our residents, which is always, I think, top of mind as we're having our deliberations. And then I heard you loud and clear about the educational component, and I will defer to some of my colleagues who attended a training with me from the Texas APA, which I found very insightful. And I think those are opportunities we can hopefully continue to share, not only within planning and zoning, especially as we potentially take on new members, but also potentially it is for elected and appointed members. So it's highly appropriate for city council members. I think there may have been some city council folks
There were a
there.
bunch, yeah, from other
Yeah.
cities, yeah.
So
Well, the next time there is something like that, please communicate that out so we can go. You know, the people that are sitting in these chairs and the others group that will be here, you know, they're going to be here for a few years, and you want them to be as educated as they can be, because they're making important decisions and decisions that have serious financial impact, both to the city and to the applicants.
And I would say that I shared out some of the information we learned from that in one of our sessions. So I know that's recorded, and I'm sure we can look that up. But I'm also happy anytime to, provide that, information to council at your request and that sort of thing. As we were just sharing actually before the meeting started, I just wrapped up a course that I assigned to my students from the Lincoln Land Institute out of Chicago. Free online course, excellent material, very digestible. And so there are tons of opportunities out there. I think we've discussed previously, this has been a while back, this is when Tina was still here. We discussed doing ULI, the Urban Land Institute, has a training called Urban Plan. And again, I've done this training with my students. And one of the key issues that comes up in that training is this issue of adjacencies. So, I think there are lots of opportunities, and it's just a matter of the right opportunity for the need as council sees it, and planning and zoning. And, some of them are free, some of them may have some small budget considerations. So just keeping that in mind. But I certainly want to share on that educational front, because that is a passion of mine as an educator. And
How often do they do those courses?
the Texas APA usually does them every other year. They do have one from, I think, 2017 that's recorded and available free online on the Texas APA website. So that's a
Texas,
APA, American Planning Association. I'm actually a member of two APAs, American Planning Association, American Psychological Association, from my other degree. So it's good to specify which APA.
It was like drinking from a fire hose. So I almost feel like I'd want to do it again
Yeah.
next time I do it, yeah.
Yeah, and as we get new members as well, and, as maybe it didn't work for other folks' schedule, last time. But that is usually offered also in concert with the APA conference. They sometimes have a short course for elected and appointed officials. I think APA next year is in Allen.
Allen, yeah,
It's
it'll
in
be local.
Allen.
It'll
So
be
that's drivable easily.
we should definitely.
So if
develop
they're
that.
doing, we'll take a look, if they're doing that short course again, highly recommended. I'm saying that, but y'all are the ones who really could speak better on it than I could.
We'll get the word out, Mayor,
Okay.
to everybody.
It was very cool.
Yeah, I would go again.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've slept since then.
I feel like I need to go again to get more information. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But it was also really fascinating to listen to all the stories they go on.
And staff today just handed out some great texts that also do a good job. So I do want to commend staff on their attempts to have us trained up. I feel like they have provided all the water, and we just need to drink.
Right. Okay.
Try to not make those attempts futile.
Well, thank you for letting me have a few moments. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate everybody here serving. It's really, it's so important to our city. So, and your time is important, not only to the city, but to your families and whatnot, and your jobs. So, thank you. So,
pleasure.
that's it.
Thank you
Y'all have
kindly.
a good meeting.
Appreciate it. All right. Thanks again, Mayor. That takes us to item A2, discuss regular agenda items. And that brings us up to item C1, consider approval of the January 22nd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners, any corrections, errors, comments from minutes from January 22nd? All right. No, yep, you do.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
I just had a question on it, and on page 3A2, on the Planning and Zoning Landscape Commission said we presented to the council on January 23. I understand it's been deferred, or did
It's been put on hold.
put on hold? I guess we'll talk about that later. Is it on the agenda to talk about
I think
that?
we do have an eight, that's item 8.3, so we will receive an update
Okay, then I'll defer that.
in A4 from our subcommittee. So we will have two items. Hopefully that will address that, but
Okay, thank you.
brilliant. Thank you so much. Any other items for consideration there? Okay, seeing none, we will move to item D1, conduct a public hearing, consider the request for a zoning amendment for industrial development on approximately 20.8 acres located at 11800 Ford Road within the Planned Development District 74, PD 74 zoning district, and take appropriate action. We'll be presenting this one. this evening?
I'll be presenting that.
Okay.
So I can take any questions you guys might have, or if we want to wait till we go downstairs.
Any
wanna
discussion,
do that.
questions?
We do have the applicant will be, Harold. Yes, sir.
Do we know who hired the applicant? I mean, there's multiple properties involved. I'm just curious, it looks like somebody is trying to put all that property together, change the zoning and do something with it. So who is that person behind that? Question mark.
Yeah, Nick, you're right. There are multiple properties in this case, and I believe there's multiple owners in this case also.
So they all got, do we know that they all got together and applied for this?
Yeah, the applicant they can address that for sure downstairs. Absolutely.
And thank you, Sarah and Brian, for the letter. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Other questions, concerns, discussion points we want to have? Okay, quick reminder, because it's a public hearing, we'll vote first to close the public hearing, and then we'll move to the actual item on the action item. It's mostly a reminder for me as much as y'all, but you'll keep me honest. All right, that takes us back to item A3, receive an update regarding draft landscape amendments to the comprehensive zoning ordinance.
Yeah, and I can, I'll speak to that item. So we did meet with the city council through a study session item. And just a few items I just want to touch on. We went through the entire landscape ordinance. There was some feedback that we got back from city council. Some of those items included how restrictive some of the requirements were. They wanted to see maybe a bit more flexibility on some of these items. They also wanted to clarify the penalties for the violations and the enforcement process that we're going to have when it comes to landscaping. There were some concern about the species list also as well. I think some of the comments might have been related to not understanding, the entire plant list, and if we could get things also that might be able to provide a little bit more like in layman's terms on what is allowed and what isn't allowed when it comes to species list. There was also some concerns about the screening requirements for multifamily complexes, things to that nature. So what we ended up settling on was that we definitely want to bring the landscape ordinance back in the future. It didn't really seem to be, and I don't want to say there's not a rush on it. They definitely want us to take our time on it and make sure that we get parks involved, all the other departments involved in this, sustainability, get as much feedback as we can before we bring that back to city council. So that was essentially the feedback that we received. And so, so we're gonna bring it back. We said that we would go back, still talk to the subcommittee about this also as well, and then make some formal adjustments and bring that back to city council again as a study session item as well.
So who now owns the process?
Really, city council owns the process. It doesn't mean that P&Z is not going to see it. P&Z still has to see this because we have to take action on it here. as far as getting some feedback from, we plan to go back to city council initially, and then we will bring this back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for your formal recommendation, and then back to city council after that.
In the sense of a, not necessarily a rush, do it well, but do you have in your mind a goal, like of when that might be? Timeframe, general timeframe?
Yeah, probably, I'd say we're working with Kira on this also, because Kira was, she's one of the main people working on this particular item. So we're looking at, hopefully, April is when we'd be looking, April, May.
Super long.
Yeah, it's not long from now, no. And I think there's still going to be a lot of feedback that we got. I know Linda had reached out to me as well, and so I want to reach back out to the subcommittee as well, make sure that we're all, on the same page as far as any other feedback that could be provided. And again, we're taking this back as a study session item to city council. So there's still a lot of opportunity for a lot of feedback at this point. And heck, even when we bring it back to P&Z, it is still a public hearing, open for different for changes, for conditions, all of that. So we'll have plenty of time to definitely talk about this item. We definitely want to get this across the goal line, without a doubt. I know it's something that's been in the works for a while, but yeah, that's where we stand right now.
Well, we appreciate the update and also, again, the hard work of the subcommittee and bringing that forward. And we know these are iterative processes, and to your point, it does take sometimes a lot of cooks in the kitchen to get it right. So I have no doubt that we'll arrive there in due time. All right. Any other, I will ask for maybe, I know you mentioned you had some thoughts or some comments on it for members of this body or the public who want to make any feedback. What's the best way for them to get that in the right hands?
Absolutely. We're an open book, so anybody can email any of our staff members. If they have any suggestions, ideas, anything, email, absolutely. Call us. We'll still take notes. We can always try to address what we can. But, I'd say the next iteration that we have some formal comments that we can get from the outside and from this commission will definitely be when we bring this for action.
Okay.
So there's still an opportunity to bring that forward and get feedback at that moment. But email, not a problem at all.
Okay.
Send that to us tomorrow if you want.
Great. Any further questions for staff on that? Fantastic. Up next, item A4, we will receive an update from the Planning and Zoning Commission Landscape and Tree Preservation Subcommittee. Heidi, take it away. I know it's basically your,
Okay, I'm just going to reiterate what you just said. This is a formal line item on the agenda.
Right.
Yes, any comments, we'll welcome any of them. So
Absolutely.
I can't say it any better than you said it.
great. And again, thank you again for the very diligent work that I know has gone into that. So really appreciate that.
Pass that on to Linda and Justin too.
Please do. Please do. All right, up next, item A5, receive a presentation regarding a potential amendment to the comprehensive zoning ordinance related to home occupations. Brian?
All right. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Commission. Brian Campbell, Senior Planning Technician here to present to you on the topic of home occupations. As the staff report said, we are looking to update our comprehensive zoning ordinance with respect to home occupations, just to bring to some clarification as to what is versus what it's not. So before I get into all that, I'm going to first talk about why we're here. So dating back to about 2022, so about a couple of years back, code enforcement started receiving some complaints about a particular property that may or may not have been operating a home occupation business that they felt didn't qualify as such. So as a result, code enforcement presented to City Council across 3 study sessions about this topic. one in late 2022 and the other two last year. But the third presentation being a potential amendment to Chapter 19 of the Code of Ordinances. However, in discussions with, between code enforcement and the city attorney, it was felt that this was best addressed by us in planning, given that we already have this use defined both in our use table and within the definitions section of the comprehensive zoning ordinance. So hence, we, the planning department, have received direction from city council and the city management office to address this. So this is the definition of home occupations as it currently appears in the CZO. I won't go through the whole thing, but I will hang on this slide for a few moments for y'all to take a look at it. Like I said, this is how the definition appears in the definitions section of the CZO. It can come off as a little bit cumbersome because this is all smushed into one paragraph, which is why I broke out this section into the A through G. A majority of the definition discusses what isn't a home occupation. The main takeaway I feel from this should be that a home occupation should be something that's inconspicuous. In other words, something that you're doing in your home that's an accessory use that nobody would have any idea that you were doing. So this is the section from our use table for home occupations. So currently we allow the use within all one-family and two-family residential zoning districts, as well as any planned development district that permits these uses. Okay, so with this ordinance update, we're looking to regulate the following items. So first of all, we want to ensure that a home occupation is an accessory use only and not the main use of the property. And with that, we also want to ensure that the occupation is only being operated by the main resident or residents of the property. In other words, they wouldn't be allowed to hire any outside employees. With respect to open and outdoor storage, they would be prohibited within any area visible to the public, as I believe it is now within our Code of Ordinances. Regarding parking, the home occupation use can't occur any additional parking beyond what is required for the main dwelling unit. And on the next slide, I'll get into examples of permitted and prohibited uses. I actually have a few examples on the right side here. So this graphic with the green check mark is a home office. We would consider that a home occupation versus these other two pictures with the cross-out symbol, distribution facility and an auto repair facility. We would not consider those home occupations. So here are some examples of what we would consider home occupation uses versus those which aren't. So for those that are, music lessons and tutoring for 4 or fewer students, an office for such uses as a notary of the public, an accountant, a bookkeeper, an architect, or a lawyer, a daycare specifically for 6 or fewer children under the age of 16. And then state law permits cottage food production, which basically is the production and distribution of foods such as coffee and tea and nuts and other similar foods that don't have time and temperature controls, but that would have to be in compliance with any applicable state law. Regarding prohibited uses, this is not an exhaustive list. It does include any use that's currently not permitted within the R1 through D2 zoning districts as defined in the CZO. So that's all of our one-family and two-family residential zoning districts. Any use related to motor vehicles, dance and music studios, animal kennels, clinics, or hospitals with or without outside runs, warehousing and distribution facilities, and barber and shops and beauty salons. And just here on the right, I have a couple of more examples of permitted home occupation uses, another home office, and music lessons. So our next steps, we are drafting an ordinance that we will be bringing back to you as an action item as a public hearing. And then subsequent to that, we'll be bringing that to City Council for formal adoption. Like I said at the beginning, City Council has already seen this a few times, but before we finalized this ordinance, we wanted to provide you all an opportunity to provide any feedback. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, I thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We'll
I do
start
have one.
here. Yeah, and we'll get to you next, Harold.
Yeah.
You said no outside employees are permitted, but daycare is permitted. So if the homeowner has children and wants to hire somebody to come in as a nanny, does that fall within the scope of this, and in what way?
Right, so there's a difference between somebody hiring a nanny to babysit their children versus the person living in that unit running a daycare. So if the person wanted to run a daycare out of their home, they can do that, but like I said, it would have to be 6 or fewer children under the
Yeah,
age of
that
16.
I got. It was, but if, the outside employee ban is, I guess, a nanny would be exempted from that prohibition.
Yeah, and we can, and I'll take this.
Okay,
one.
okay.
Yeah, and of course, this is just a first stab at cleaning up the home occupation section. It's a good point. If somebody is hiring a nanny, or let's say somebody is hiring a babysitter or something, this would absolutely not prohibit anything
I
like
understand
that.
that's clearly not the intent, but.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Right,
And again, we
no.
can always make things a little clear. We can always add,
Okay.
exceptions and things like that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
This is good, though. I like it.
Well, great. I believe you had a question.
How did, number one, how did 6 come up? Similar question. Also, if it were 6, I'm thinking you got 6 drop-offs in the morning and 6 pickups in the afternoon in the middle of a residential area. And I'm thinking traffic, parking, disturbing the neighborhood.
That's
Right.
state law.
Yeah, it's state law, because as we began drafting this ordinance, we did do a little bit of research, and that was something that state law came up with, and we
Okay.
thought we would use as a good example.
Now, you have,
answers
to
the
be, you have to
question.
be registered with the state after 6.
Yes.
Under 6, you don't.
The state has requirements for operation of that kind of facility then, don't they? Is that where it
Yes.
falls under?
Correct. So as Marco said, if you have more than 6 children, then you're required to register for the state. So 6 or fewer children, you're not required to register. So that's why that's our cutoff. Because otherwise, you would have those requirements, and then obviously at that point, it wouldn't be so much a home occupation use.
Now, lastly, do we know of any city that says if you have a home business, you need to register with the city? I mean, would a registration, I don't know if it's legal or not, but it's like the rental program we have here in Farmers Branch. Every rental house is supposed to be registered.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Why wouldn't we just say, welcome to Farmers Branch, if you're gonna operate a home business, register with the city? No fee, just register that you do it.
Yeah, and that's always something that we could definitely
I don't know if it's
entertain.
legal or not.
I don't think it's illegal. I mean, I
No.
think there may be cities out there that have programs like that. I had never heard of the residential, like us having to register rental properties. Like in the city I worked at before, I'd never
Go
heard
to
of
a
that.
college town.
Absolutely. So now there's certain rules and laws that exist in some municipalities, some that don't exist in others. But that's something we could entertain. Sure, like
Just a thought. I mean,
absolutely.
it wouldn't be legal or illegal if you didn't register, but it would be nice to know,
Gotcha.
because I don't think, generally people don't complain unless some kind of disturbing activity takes place
Correct.
on an ongoing basis. I mean, if a guy's an attorney and he operates out of his house, it's kind of not a big deal.
Right.
So, like the city I worked in, well, I'm trying to think of like, you don't want to go all the way to definitely not an SUP route, but registering with the city, like through a small permitting process, that could
Yeah, I mean,
potentially
I'm
work.
just
Yeah.
saying where the city would know,
Mhm.
that way code enforcement would know when he's driving down the street, well, I know that guy's registered and there's 12 cars parked in front of 3 houses.
Absolutely.
I will
Sure.
say, in thinking about that logistically, in our kind of common work from home environment now, I would dare say most homes to some degree are operating some work activities out of their home. At least,
Absolutely.
I would think a vast majority at this juncture with the amount of work from home. So while I hear what you're saying, I think it would be somewhat burdensome both for the residents as well as for the city to manage, given that the percentage, I have to imagine, is quite high.
Kind of a post-COVID world that we live in, I
Yeah.
guess, for the most part.
Yeah,
Which-
it turns into a fuzzy line between, working from home on Fridays to, something that's much more involved.
And I don't want to get this mixed up with work from home.
No.
Working from, like, so if you, for instance, if I work from home on a Monday or a Tuesday, my job is still here. This is really more for people who actually run their business completely out of their home. So
Yes,
which-
and we'll
which
make sure
again-
that's clear in the ordinance. This
Yeah.
does not preclude working from home.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Though
Good
many
point.
employees now are fully remote.
True,
Exactly.
So
Yes,
I-
and this will not preclude that at all.
right.
But is that running a business or are you just an employee?
You're just an employee. I think that's the differentiation we want
Yes,
to make here
That's
is
the
that,
distinction, yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
between you working at home as an employee for another entity versus you're actually running the business out of your home. The latter is what we're regulating.
And then it turns fuzzy with,
Consulting.
consulting or
Yeah.
CPAs and attorneys.
Well, what if you're having Amazon Prime come to your house 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day? Is that a traffic?
Well, they come twice a
issue?
day to my house just.
Well, but no, what I'm saying is, I mean, there's people that may be doing something inside their house and they're doing
Yeah.
packages
Manufacturing or
you
something,
know,
yeah.
I mean, it could happen.
Which it looked like was a prohibited use, the warehousing and distribution, if you're running
Correct.
an Amazon fulfillment company out of
Well,
your
but-
house and stocking
But if you're,
t-shirts.
but if
you know.
it's, you're sending out packets like a consultant may, I'm thinking of the traffic.
well, and
So-
I think in the end, it's going to be complaint-based. I
Yeah.
think ultimately that's how you're going to find if somebody's doing something they're not supposed to be doing, it's going to end up being a neighbor or somebody who
I
files a
agree.
complaint, then we can do our investigation and ensure that operation ceases.
See, I don't know anybody that does it or has complained about it.
Yeah, and I think the way that you've presented it here, that parking stipulation would be the one that would be triggered. And so in some ways, it doesn't matter what the nature of the business is, because it would be triggered, as you said, by those external pieces or those codifying aspects of the code as you're writing it.
Yes. Heidi, did you have a question?
I did. I was just going to comment, if you're working from home every day, just working from home, you'll start to notice all the crazy stuff and people coming and going. You'll notice. Anyway, my question was, this is just kind of the definition of running a home-based business.
Correct.
Is there any type of clarification that you guys are doing on what the penalty is? So like if somebody is running a prohibited business with multiple employees out of a home, maybe they've leased the home just for the business use instead of leasing commercial space. At what point does the city step in and what are the actions that they can take?
It would be a zoning violation. So zoning violation could carry up to $2,000 per day. Of course, that has to go through a legal process where we go into the courts.
Okay.
The courts are the ones who actually set that fine. It can be up to $2,000. But no, it would run the same way as we would do. We would contact code enforcement, they would investigate it,
Exactly.
and then it would go through that process.
Just curious. Thank you.
So are you familiar with the website Peerspace?
I'm not.
It's in the video production business. It's used a lot of you can go and you want to do a video production. I could find 500 homes in Dallas that are available to rent. The people still live there, so there's no employees. They have no employees. But I can arrange. My team can come up. We can do a quick video production, and we'll be gone. Is this?
I've never heard of that.
Oh, just check it out, Peerspace.
Okay.
It's amazing. You can find any, like PEER
Okay.
space.
So is it
But you
different
could-
than photographers using, there used to be like for models, there was also a home, like like Kim Dawson, there was also a home company that would actually, you could rent your home for photo shoots. Was it basically
Same,
that?
it's the same concept. So
Okay.
you could find for photography,
Right.
if you could find beautiful places to go
Oh, yeah.
do photography.
Yeah.
But it's like, where you go into the home, so I think it would be prohibited in the sense of
Yeah.
people would see cars coming
I got
and
you.
people, but it's still sort of like a little bit of a gray area, is it? You
Yeah,
It's
so let
something
us
we
let
could
us
look
Yeah, 'cause there'd be
into.
let us
big
look
crews
into
with
it.
that.
Address.
It can be.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a house, I mean, it's usually not so big, but I guess
Yeah.
they don't usually
It's
have.
not long term. It's something that happens.
Just
like-
in a day, you just go
happens
in,
in a day and
go
then
in,
they're
you do
gone.
your shoot, you're done, you're out.
Sort of not an ongoing,
It's ongoing for them, they're probably renting it out. I don't, how often they get it done, but you're in and out for your one day and it's done.
Some of the good homes are rented
Yeah,
on a
awesome.
fairly regular basis. I used to
Yeah,
shoot in
great.
people's houses. And we would bring in 40 people.
Are these same homes on Airbnb or something?
No, they're
Well,
very
they're
high-end,
specific
beautiful homes.
Specifically for renting, that usually is a minimum of several hours, but often for a day.
And the owner of that home lives in it and just
Lives in
rents
it, yeah, they live in it. Sometimes they stay there while you're there and sometimes they go away.
Something we can definitely look into.
Judge Breather?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's
Yeah. I
absolutely.
didn't think about
Yeah.
that.
And so the next steps are you're gonna be drafting an ordinance to bring before us? or
Yes, and we're working on that with our city attorney right now, so you'll see this next as an action item.
Are there work items for us in the meantime? Or
Uh,
anything that we should be,
No, sir. I mean,
Doing
unless you have any
prepared.
feedback in the meantime, you're welcome to email us, but otherwise, you have to just see this as an action item next.
great. Thank you again, Brian.
Absolutely, thank you all.
Up next, item A6, we'll have a presentation regarding stormwater drainage policies. While she's getting it pulled up, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure.
You can do that.
Good evening, I'm Danielle Ricks, Deputy Director of Utilities and Engineering. Marcos asked me to come tonight to give just a very brief, I know we're short on time, so I'll be quick, full presentation about all that we have going on in stormwater. So, just kind of a brief overview. The Stormwater Fee and Fund was implemented, I believe, back in 2015. And this fund is basically how we pay for all of our stormwater projects. We have a stormwater committee that oversees the fund and our projects, and we meet quarterly, and we just provide updates, discuss projects. That's about it. And then also, for every new development project that comes through, we have the Development Review Committee, which I'm a part of, and every single site is looked at by us to address drainage design. We do have a design criteria manual that has a detention requirement, and it's very site-specific. So these are our upcoming projects for this fiscal year and next fiscal year. Reach 4, this is over by Janie Stark Elementary, just an erosion control project. That's 90% design complete, so that we're hoping to get that one out soon. The next one is Valley View at Rawhide Bridge, that's over here by the Rose Garden. It's a culvert rehab that failed, and that's also at 90% design completion, so we're hoping to get that one out quick as well. Ford Road, east of FB Creek Bridge, it's about 50% design complete. And then Reach 2, this is also on Farmers Branch Creek. That's 100% complete, but we're wanting to do Reach 4 first downstream before we do the upstream component.
Where's Lost Valley?
I believe it's
It's
Brincrest, if I'm calling correctly. I can get you.
It's okay,
specific.
I'm just,
Okay.
one of those streets I don't,
Yeah, I know.
I know where Brandcrest is.
Yeah, I believe it's, I could be wrong, but I believe that's where it is. Further upstream.
So that money is collected from the monthly fee.
Yes.
Isn't that fee about $1.2 million annually?
I don't know for sure off the top of my head. That sounds about right, but I'm not certain.
You mentioned site-specific. I don't recall recently seeing anything about detention on any projects we've seen, say, in the last 6 months. Several years ago, we had one of those rains. When it rains, it pours.
Sure.
And of course, that's when everybody starts talking about detention, retention. Has anyone, to your knowledge, I know you're new, looked at preventive things like raising the height of a curb? Or making the drains a little smaller so that parking lots hold water for whatever that factor is for 30 minutes before it slowly drains off into the creek?
For certain development projects, yes.
Having been around here for a while, Addison to the east, everything over there runs into Farmers Branch Creek. They have no drainage plan. They don't care because water runs out of Addison. That's why Farmers Branch Creek is in bad shape. If you've done any inspections, you ever looked at it. I'm thinking in the future, in 25, 30, 40 years, I would think that a plan today where new construction, wherever it is in the city, should have X amount of detention, just for no other reason than to, make sure that we have control of all future projects, because we haven't really done it in the past until we told Brookhaven College about 15 years ago, we're not going to give you a building permit unless you put detention facilities right above the creek behind the college.
Sure.
They didn't like that, but that was the first I know about where we required somebody to do it or else.
Gotcha.
So
Our
what are your thoughts? You're brand new. I don't know what you've seen in other cities.
Our design criteria manual was adopted the very end of 2021. So everything before that was grandfathered. There was no detention. Post that, again, it's site specific, but there have been several that have been required to do detention. Some that are smaller
The
or
west side, or,
I'm
and I
trying
know
to
you're
think.
new. I'm not trying to
That's
sharp
okay.
shoot you. I'm
No,
just-
that's okay. I can't recall any on the west side, surely on the east side. And it's kind of a slow-moving process because we don't have a whole lot of empty land anymore. It's all going to be redevelopment,
Well,
so.
Right, and because it is redevelopment, therefore, we may need to think about doing something.
Sure, yes.
I mean,
it-
because nobody says anything until the
Mm-hmm.
creek bit gets high and you can't get across the bridge on Marsh Lane, or streets are impassable, or Farmers Branch Creek floods somewhere, and then everybody goes up in arms about it. So,
Yeah. It is a requirement and it's ever evolving, so, we'll go as we can and try and do the best.
do you meet with the Creek Board, Creek Group? There's 4 or 5 people. I forget the name of the committee, but
Is it the Stormwater Committee?
might be.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yes, I meet with the Stormwater Committee
Quarterly?
quarterly, yes.
What kind of input, what do they have? I know a couple of those people used to live on Farmers Branch Creek.
Yeah, so we primarily discuss any upcoming creek projects we have or creek project ideas. And they're usually on board with everything we got.
Do y'all still follow that Nichols study that was done 4, 5, 6 years ago?
Yes, so Reach 4 and Reach 2 are both projects that were identified as part of that report. Yes.
Is there any current thought about addition to or changing plans, or has anybody brought it up besides me?
No, not really.
So is there the idea of like 100-year rain or, which are becoming more and more, they're not
More
these
common.
events, yeah, more common.
Sure.
We're a little bit lucky because with the big rains, Houston, they go east of us typically, so I don't know that we've been hit with one. So is there like that concept of, like, do we know like where our breakpoints are? Like at some level of rain, some level of disaster is going to happen, and we kind of know where those places are?
Sure, yeah. So FEMA has flood maps, and those show the 100-year, 500-year storm events and the impacts that those will have. And so, yeah, we look at those regularly. And there are quite a few homes that are within those areas, unfortunately.
In the last 5 years, do we know of any properties that have been damaged or affected by floodwaters?
No buildings that I'm aware of. Some backyards, yes, but no buildings.
Have you done any tours or scouting on the creek, like back behind the elementary school on Josie Lane? Where the bank is that tall and it keeps eroding?
Is that Janie Stark?
Right, Janie Stark.
Yes,
From Janie Stark east,
yes. So Reach 4 is part of that area that we are planning to fix.
so are they doing anything to help anybody in those backyards under the Nichols plan?
Yes, yes. So we'll be adding in some Gabion mattresses, some walls to help protect their backyards. Yes, sir.
Somebody else say something about.
Well, I want to,
I didn't bring it up just to.
Sure. I know that these stormwater projects, and it's a ongoing kind of challenge.
Yes,
I've done some work in the past with NCT COG and the Sustainable Public Rights of Way. And I know that we're also working, coming up, listen to the council presentation on active transportation. So
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
just curious if you have any interface with those types of projects, because as we consider street redesign, you brought up the curbs, but there's also, the bioswales, just the sustainable public rights of way.
Yes.
That would also, of course, be contributors here. And I'm thinking also about work I've seen before coming here. I was in Atlanta, and the old Fourth Ward Park there was a culvert rehab, but instead of doing a culvert, they actually created a floodable park,
Oh, interesting.
so that the park is meant to flood and then be that retention. But then when the water goes down, it's an amenity. So it is a park. So I just bring these up as creative ideas, and
Sure,
we may or may not have sites that work for any of those types of ideas, but just wanted to share them as innovative.
No, absolutely. I think I saw an email today about one of those webinars coming up, and I thought, I need to register for that. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm all the time
Yeah.
on
yeah.
those too. So
And what's nice is we just merged with sustainability, so now we're one team, and those things are, I think, going to be more implemented and integrated. So, yes.
See, the folks at Brookhaven also, because the creek, Rawhide Creek runs through Brookhaven Country Club, and they've had flooding issues when we have, a big rain. And we've had to dredge the pond at the library
Right.
all too often. I think it costs a lot of money to dredge that pond. But I mean, they used to have a plan or talk about a plan to slow down some of the runoff from the club down into the creek. But I'm sure you haven't had a chance to talk with those people yet.
I believe Freeze and Nichols may have done, something on that, and they're actually doing the Valley View project for us, and we've asked them to also look at Rawhide Creek and projects that we can do along there that would help. So,
Okay. It won't be important until the next 6-inch rain we have in 2 hours.
oh yes, I always know when it rains.
Then
We have
they'll
lots of
go-
calls.
Then they'll start looking for you and why haven't we
Yes.
done this?
Yes.
So these are the current ongoing projects. Are there future planned projects list?
Pretty much just the Rawhide, I can't think of the word, report or study, Rawhide study.
And that's accessible on the website?
The study, it hasn't been done yet.
Oh.
We've just hired, or not hired, but engaged Freeze Nichols to begin that.
Again, I want to commend you on your efforts. I know this is a very tireless task of maintaining the stormwater challenges in any city, and especially one as proliferating with creeks as we are.
Yes.
It is a
Agreed.
great amenity for our city. It's part of what makes us the city in a park. We're able to have a lot of the tree coverage
Sure.
and things that we do because of those creaks.
There's a lot of beauty. That's
There's
true.
a lot of
Yeah.
beauty, but it also brings a lot of maintenance headaches. And
Yes.
so we
Agreed.
at least I want to thank you and for all of that work that you do on behalf of the city.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to item A7, discuss agenda items for future planning and zoning commission consideration. Commissioners? I had just one. I know that staff has already been working on it, but just wanted to say that I was excited to see the work being done on the active transportation plan. Certainly very consistent with our comprehensive plan. In fact, they delayed that until the comprehensive plan was done so that they could make sure they worked in concert. And I will be very excited to have them come to a study session so that we can ensure that we're providing feedback and hearing the work that's being done there.
Yeah, our Public Works Department, our sustainability is heading up that active transportation plan, but we'll be working in concert with those guys during the public engagement process and all of that, so.
Great. And please send us updates on those public hearings and different
Yes.
things so we can
We can do that.
be in attendance.
Absolutely.
All right, anything else? All right, well, with that, we will reconvene downstairs. We're scheduled to start around 7, but I realize folks may need a little longer bio break, so just as you're able, and we've ended our study session at 6:57. Thank you kindly. We will see y'all downstairs.
Just playing.
Good evening and welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It is presently 7:06, Monday, February 26, 2024. I'd like to begin by thanking the commissioners for their service. Up first is citizen comments. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any matter that is not posted on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the commission should complete a citizen's comments registration form and submit it to the chair prior to the start of the meeting. There is a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak, with a reasonable limitation on speakers on any one topic or item, with a maximum of 15 total minutes on the same topic item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. The Planning and Zoning Commission is not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to the Director of Planning for further study or action, briefly state existing city policy, or provide a brief statement of factual information in response to the inquiry. We do have a citizen comment, Ms. Pat Edmiston. And if you wouldn't mind, as you approach, just please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Pat Edmiston. I live on Tanglewood, and I did not just fall off of the turnip truck. I am 85 years old. I have lived in Farmers Branch since 1963. The remarks I'm going to make are ones that I wrote out and made notes to myself at home before I came tonight. I did attend the city council meeting, which I will be talking about, but some of the remarks that I may make, or that I am going to make, are similar to maybe some that the mayor made. But we had no contact. I did not talk to him. He did not know I was coming. So I was a little bit surprised as he went through his remarks that they kind of went along with some of mine. So I will begin by saying I think Cusac's project should have never come to the city council. That should never have left your study session. Our residents spoke. It was obvious that not enough homework was done regarding this project by everybody involved. Cost. How many of you would spend $400,000 or $500,000 for a home to live on that corner? Did you think about that when you were approving this? And then there is the question of density. This project would have caused, and then traffic and other problems. But I will say, now the real issue is the residents of this city want no more apartments, no more density, and like what Mr. Cusac's project would have brought to the city and to that area. And I thought it was quite interesting to hear some of the remarks that the mayor made. But I was glad that the vote went as it went. The council people are listening to the community and to the residents, and that's what needs to happen. This is our city, and for people to come and say, you know, make all the remarks that they want to make, and then the council vote directly opposite, that's not very appealing. I want to thank you all for listening, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Edmiston. Just a statement of brief factual information. We are a recommendation body, so regardless of our advice that we give to council, all of the cases of this nature that we would hear would always go to city council, just so you know the process. Thank you. All right, up next is item C1. Consider approval of the January 22nd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion on the topic? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you kindly. Up next, item D1, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a zoning amendment for industrial development on approximately 20.8 acres located at 11800 Ford Road within the Planned Development District Number 74 zoning district and take appropriate action.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Marcos Narvaez, Deputy Director of Planning. The applicant does seek to amend PD 74. This is for a warehouse and distribution use. The property is located on 20 acres and contains 4 office buildings with surface parking. The proposal will include demolishing those existing buildings and adding 3 new warehouse buildings. This will total about 393,000 square feet between all 3. This will include a new parking lot, new landscaping, streetscape improvements, and just a bit of history on PD 74. This PD does focus currently right now on office and retail services along the LBJ Freeway. It is envisioned to have high-rise and hotel developments. Behind that, you would have more mid-rise to the interior and then low-rise office developments along the northern boundary. One other interesting fact about PD 74, it does say that the PD also specifies an intent to respect and preserve the stability of the existing single-family neighborhood located to the north. So these are all things that we want to consider. Here you can see the 20-acre tract with the proposed layout. This is bounded by Christian to the north, Ford Road to the west, and LBJ to the south. Industrial-type uses would only be permitted north of Christian Parkway, and that is with an approved SUP. So the development does have multiple driveways that are proposed along all those streets I just mentioned, Christian Parkway, Ford Road, and Villa Creek Drive. This is to provide access to the site. New sidewalks are proposed around this entire development to provide pedestrian connectivity. The applicant has provided the required number of parking spaces. In this case, it would be about 393 spaces. The landscape plan that was provided also exceeds the minimum that's set by PD 74. Essentially, we're getting about a total of 301 new trees that are proposed throughout this particular site. So all buildings will remain one single story with a maximum height of 44 feet. The primary material is a form-lined concrete material exterior. This is with alternating colors. It's going to have building depths to provide various articulation, roofline articulation as well. You'll notice that there is increased glazing or glass that's going to run around this building. Canopies, exterior lighting are all proposed to enhance the front facade and the primary building. So Building C has dock doors that face the public right-of-way. You can see that on the lower left image. So those dock doors will be facing the right-of-way. The applicant is proposing a 10-foot concrete screening wall with decorative LED lighting is proposed, and that's all along Ford Road. I do want to mention that the staff report calls out a few deviations to PD 74. And I'll just run through these. These are all listed within the staff report. Front yards are to be exclusively used for open landscapes. In this particular case, the surface parking that the applicant is proposing, that's actually encroaching into that front yard area. The PD also calls out the proximity to residential zone properties. In this particular case, there's about 475 feet that abuts what we call R4 zoning, which is residential zoning. That's essentially where the college is located. Based on the formula that's been provided, and again, this is very detailed information that's in the staff report, there would be a minimum setback of 132 feet that's needed along that R3 zoned area. In this particular case, Building A, that setback is set at 50 feet from that shared property line. The PD also talks about existing trees, how they need to be preserved. The applicant will be removing about 32 trees. Obviously, that's necessary to build the type of buildings that, where those buildings are going to be located, those trees will need to be removed. But again, the PD does talk about that. Building C's dock doors are facing Ford Road. I mentioned this earlier. And although the applicant has proposed a 10-foot screening wall along Ford Road, staff does recommend that the building be reoriented, if this was to get approved, with the front facade to actually face Ford Road and have those dock doors face the rear side. The 2045 plan does designate the area as regional commercial on our future land use map. The plan does envision large footprint commercial developments like shopping centers and similar uses. This makes the proposal not consistent with our 2045 plan. I'll add that the site is highly visible, and this Ford Road does lead to our historical park, the existing residential area, as well as institutional uses, that being the college. On February 15th, 15 zoning notification letters were mailed to the surrounding property owners. Staff has received one letter in opposition. Staff does recommend denial of the proposed zoning amendment. I will continue to stand for questions. The applicant is here. They would like to provide a PowerPoint as well, and they do have a small video that they'd like to show as well.
Thank you, Marcos. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
I have a question. On the east side of Ford Road, just south of the creek, I recall an old chemical facility, could have been called Zocon. Once upon a time, that was it a national dump site for X number of years, or in the rat place in between collars with dogs or something there? I thought it 30 years ago.
I'm not familiar with that, Commissioner.
It's there. I'm just wondering
Okay.
about the existing, if there's some kind of moratorium on that property. It's right across the street from the historical park.
Not aware of it. Something I can definitely look at.
Somebody here, I don't know, maybe it's written down somewhere. I remember.
We can have staff.
I think what's going on there, the zoning changes, but I don't know if the applicant did that or not. Some years ago, maybe 10 years ago, somebody wanted to make that warehouse on the top side of that green area a school, until they found out across the street it's a dump site for chemicals on the National Register. So,
Again, that's something staff can look at. We could probably pinpoint that.
Thank you, as always, for your historical knowledge, Commissioner.
I told you I was getting color.
Any other comments for staff? Uh-huh.
Sorry, one. The trucks that will be coming and going to this location, are we talking box trucks, tractor trailers? What type of trucks will be coming in to this location?
I think given the type of buildings that they're constructing, I would venture to say both kinds. Whether we're talking tractor trailers or box trucks. It's really going to depend on the use that ultimately goes in this. And again, I'll let the applicant address that item. My understanding is that these are speculative or, they're speculative. So we don't know who ultimately is going to be housed in these buildings. But
Okay.
again, I would say both kinds. I would expect both kinds.
And the 10-foot prominent wall on Ford Road, what's the material? What's the aesthetic of that?
Sure, that should be a masonry wall with some LED lighting.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions for staff?
I have one. So Ford Road passes the historical park and then cuts through a neighborhood. Is there any type of, anything that prohibits trucks from using the full length of Ford Road? I mean, can trucks come up and down through those neighborhoods right there and past the historical park?
Yes, ma'am. We do have signs posted in that location. There's signs, I believe, posted at Valley Creek, and I believe there's a sign posted at Christian Parkway as well that prohibits trucks from entering past that point.
Okay.
Vehicles cannot go past that. We're talking, again, the 18-wheelers and the big box trucks. And there are currently 2 signs posted out there.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Yeah, could you, I think you mentioned it quickly, but, so there was Building C on this, in this picture, that section, the plan or the concept would be that would be hotels, or what did you, so what would be along LBJ? What would our ideal occupant be in that Building C area?
Sure. So currently, right now, the way that PD is written, it envisions, or it calls for, I guess I should say, because it's an ordinance, it's a law. So it allows by writing like office, retail uses. That's what the PD was pretty much envisioning or expecting. A lot of the buildings that exist in this location, they were built in the 70s, well before the PD came to fruition. With our comprehensive plan now, the comprehensive plan, what that envisions in this area are more shopping centers and retail uses, as well as office as well. So it hasn't really changed much from the PD. Hopefully that answers.
Yeah, so it's kind of retail office and possibly then transitioning to mixed use, like where the building A and
Absolutely.
B are?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry, I apologize. Can you go back over the building setback requirements and then what is proposed?
Sure, let's see, so. So I think they're building, and Sarah, I know you worked closely with the applicant. The way the PD is written right now, there is a 30-foot setback currently. I believe that the applicant has and it looks like they're showing a 25-foot, that's actually for the easement. How far back is your building? Oh, it's 20? So their setback, what they're proposing is a 20-foot setback. The PD again calls for a 30-foot setback. So it's, not as strict or stringent. Are you looking at just for the buildings, for the front side? Yeah, so then what their proposal is 20, ours would be on the 30 mark
Okay.
for setbacks.
Any further questions for staff? All right, I believe the applicant is here. If you'd like to make a presentation, please just state your name and address for the record, and we will receive your presentation.
Do you have the video? Oh, yes, please. I appreciate it. Sarah?
We'll start with the video.
Here, just show me where it is, and then I'll turn it back on.
The video's open here and the PowerPoint's open here.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Planning and Zoning. Sarah, thank you so much for all your time that you've spent with us working on the project. I've worked in the city of Farmers Branch for a long time, over 30 years. I've had good friends that lived here. I'm a Dallas native. And Farmers Branch does feel like home.
Could you state your name and address
Yeah,
for the record?
Kyle McCullough, 5G Collaborative Studios, Dallas, Texas.
Thank you.
1217 Main Street. But I wanted to thank you, all of you guys, for this this opportunity to take this into the new 21st century for, we call it flex hybrid. I've actually had a couple of inquiries already on Building B, which is a countertop company that is looking for high-end marble. It's just like what you have on the other side of 35, and also on the other side of LBJ too. This is what this was really designed for, is more of an office showroom condition is what we're looking for. I know that most of these, for the cost that we're spending on the site, demands this type of high-end leasing. This is a premier site for this type of use.
I do have a video, if I can run it correctly. There we go. That we provided, and this is where we start on Building C on LBJ Service Road. And we'll just go through it, and I'll talk through it. We want to provide a lot of glass, giving a meaning for the customers to come up. Big vision, we have quite a bit of a curtain wall showing, and then we have a wall here that is a feature wall for future signage for the office park. This screen wall, you did ask what type of materials that is. That's the same materials as the building. The LED lights are also integrated in the wall, and we do have up lighting. This is all matching for long-term value to the city of Farmers Branch. And then we're continuing down north of Ford Road. So each entry is identified. It not only shows well during the day, but it also shows well at night. We're adding quite a bit more landscaping to the park. A lot of the park, the office buildings, the existing, the parking lot is up against the property line. We are providing for the landscape setback of 20 feet. The 30-foot setback is really to the building setback line. So we've met your setback requirements for your parking. And what that does is there's a lot of mature trees along Ford Road that we are keeping, and we're actually giving them a better opportunity to grow and mature, adding another 20 feet of more landscaping because they're at the 0 mark along for these office buildings because it's majority of its paving. And in between the buildings, we are providing a 14-foot by 60-foot screening wall that it does match the same materials as the building for long-term durability. All the corners that you can see that we did pull back and have that nice landscaping feel for the buildings. We're keeping the design consistent with good quality, lots of vision glass for the tenants. This is a flex hybrid type of building. We see a lot of companies that come in and that are looking for a showroom condition, and then that's what we're providing, especially for materials. Most of these are they could be private homeowners that come up to the buildings. That's happening across the street. And then we also thought about the college next door. We did think about that condition with them, and we provided a row of eastern red cedars that are durable through the harshest winters and the harshest summers that we have here in DFW. We also continue the theme of the rhythms for future vision glass. We screened the service courts in the back still by 14 by 60 foot long screening walls. Well, we're very attentive to that condition. So not only these present well, but it presents well at night, and that was our main intent, to bring long-term value to the city of Farmers Branch. Good relationship to parking, to the entries, tenant recognitions. This is Building B. We already have someone wants the entire building for a countertop. Building C, you see that, and it all integrates with each other, and the rhythm of design, of good place for signage. Same conditions, large landscapings in the corner. And that ends the video, and that is what That's what we provided for today with that video. If there's any other questions, we're here to answer the questions. We have brought the developer for if there's any other comments for the development of where do these people go from another transition from the offices, we have provided that information too, and we're here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to show your presentation as well? Or
Let me see here.
I believe it's in the Adobe Acrobat, yes.
Yeah, there we go. This would be for our, we did bring up our developer, and he can make this presentation, if you'd like.
Well, I can introduce us. I'll let you make.
You going to make the presentation? Okay, well, you stick it to me. All right, there you go. Well, anyway, this is just a recent project history. We're doing this all over the country, these type of buildings, and throughout the country, and bringing in high value clientele. And you can see the subject site, the adjacent units. You have you have a lot of the same type of marble type of retail that this is happening over here in this in the industrial, and also here in the city of Dallas. The same thing is what we're trying to do. We have the site photos. There's an example of the current landscaping setback, which is at a 0. Beautiful tree. Adding this extra 20 feet of landscaping is going to make long-term value to this tree, especially that live oak. Same thing again. It's a flex hybrid, which is what we're calling this type of site. These are the type of tenants that we're talking about: stone, tile, countertop companies, plumbing, medical supplies, office and small distribution users, last mile operators. This is a low traffic generation with high volumes of transactions in these buildings. We have a lot more finish out for the buildings, especially for the offices. We've provided that. We've also contained all the screening for all the service areas in an area. One thing I do want to do, I had a couple of elevations. Let's see if I had that. I don't see that. Do you have that? Yeah, the renderings. I apologize. Oh, I'm
Sorry.
okay. No, the one that we had that we sent you to there. Oh. Okay, that's okay.
Please.
That's all right. What? That's okay. All right. Well, one thing we did do is we did do a study that did show Building C and where it is as is, especially going down the westbound on the tollway on LBJ up on the high deck, that the way we're presenting and the way that we're showing this building is really complementary of the future possible use of where the Wyndham Hotel is. We're using all the service area facing the other direction, and gives that opportunity for that development to mature to where it needs to be. If we turn the building the other direction, it's not good for the next door neighbor. It's better off to have the service court facing Ford Road. And we were very attentive to those conditions, and we did provide the same type of screening walls. The screening of the Eastern Red Cedars also with that, and that same rhythm of look. And this is, you see the site there. That what it does is it helps if that becomes multiple hotel sites, or if it turns into something else, we're good neighbor policy on that. That was my only other comment that I wanted to make sure that, we thought about very strongly on that, and is on that position there, is to be good tenants to the rest of the development, good tenants long-term for the city of Farmers Branch, and good tenants to everybody else. And especially during the weekends, these buildings are really, most of the tenants are mostly 8 to 5 and not working on the weekends. These are smaller type of tenant spaces that handles within local products and high-end residential materials that we've already know that Building B has already been a possibility of that moving in. So we feel very positive about the development and the way the path it's taking and for long-term use. Guys, I'm here to answer any of your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions for our applicant?
The subject properties, are they all vacant? The ones that we originally looked at in the green, are all those buildings vacant? Are they for sale?
Those office buildings?
No,
Wouldn't mind. Yeah, just go ahead and come forward, state your name and address.
I'm kind of looking for a little history about how you pick these properties, because I haven't driven over there in some time. I don't know if the current properties are in use or they're all vacant buildings or.
Well, Mr. Commissioner, if it's okay, let me tell you a little bit about us and I'll answer that question.
That's
Is that
fine.
okay? Pratco Creekway is a family business. It was started, my name is Lance Bozeman.
Thank you.
Sorry. It was a family business, and it was a dream of my dad and my brother and myself since I was knee-high to work with family. My dad has since passed away, and so it's my brother and me who are running the company. And we have been buying and developing industrial now for a number of years. And you mentioned your history. I've been in this business 40 years. And the old industrial buildings used to be 4 walls and a roof. And tenants require a little bit higher finish these days. And in order to attract those tenants, which equals higher rents and higher usage and more accommodating to a city, you have to build the amenities that they want. So to directly answer your question, the office business as we know it has fundamentally and gone through a systemic change, and we all know what has happened with after the pandemic and the remote working. So those buildings are 54% leased, occupied. They may be higher leased, but they're not occupied. So the vibrancy that you want in that area is not there, and the target was for us to take those buildings that were underutilized, a very low tax base, and say, how can we go change that usage to a higher usage? And I know that sounds crazy to say go from office to an industrial, but with this kind of product and the amount of money that we intend to invest, it is a higher use. And the tax base will more than triple. And those tenants will be relocated to other properties that owner has in the city of Farmers Branch. So you won't lose them as taxpayers for like business, personal property. So we have coordinated the closing of these transactions to coincide with the planning and zoning review and approval and the city council approval, so that we have enough time to go through that process, due diligence. You mentioned the environmental. We will certainly, Commissioner, do an environmental test of phase 1 and a phase 2 if needed before we close. And I can tell you that with environmental situations, lenders and cities look to people personally, and I've got no interest at my age in signing on a personal note for an environmental contamination. So it will either be clean, or if it's not, we will investigate cleaning, but most likely if it was dirty, we would probably not buy it. But we don't suspect that. We don't know the history of that part of the site. Our understanding is this is a clean site, or the owner of this property would not have bought it in the first place. I can answer any questions, or I don't have anything to add in terms of the presentation. I think Kyle did a great job of presenting, and I deferred to him for a lot of the details. But The extra glass, I would emphasize, the extra landscaping. There is no distribution. I don't want that to be confused. We don't intend to have this be a distribution site. It is more of a flex hybrid office showroom site. There will be no outside trailer parking like you see in a lot of warehouse industrial sites. That is very important for big industrial users, is to park their trailers. There will be none of that on this site. We call this shallow bay, and shallow bay tends to have smaller users and does not have the distribution component that you find in the big Amazon boxes that are 500,000 to $1 million. Yes, sir.
That smaller tract, I think it's about 4 acres to the south.
Yes, sir.
I think once upon a time it was zoned for high-rise hotel or something like that. What kind of plan do you foresee for that?
That front site is where we have building C. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it's the one that abuts 635.
Yeah, that would be
vacant
building
tract.
C. And the reason we oriented it to the direction that we did is because if you're coming westbound on 635, the view into that site is very attractive, looking at storefront, looking at that corner, looking at glass versus dock doors. So we thought it would appeal more to the city and certainly to users to come off that service road and turn in with a nice view of the building versus turning into dock doors. So we understand the concern, but we did it very intentionally and because of the aesthetics of that drive.
How long have y'all been trying to put this together, looking at this deal, working with the city?
We've been pursuing the site for a number of months, but as far as the city,
September.
yeah.
Yeah, we've been working on this in September.
All right, thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Commissioners, further questions for applicant?
Sorry. Is there any kind of guarantee, whether for city ordinances or for tenants, that you can guarantee there's no overnight businesses that will have employees working a late night shift? Because there's homes really close to this proximity. Is there any kind of guarantee either with the city or with you guys knowing that you're not going to, are you actively trying to not rent to people that have a night shift and those types of issues?
The direct answer is no, I can't give you a guarantee, but I don't even know percentages, but I can give you an estimate of percentages on businesses that we do, that we work with and companies. And I would say no more than 10% of them have after hours. And you're talking, could be call centers, it could be safety and alarm type of monitoring. We don't intend to, and that's certainly not our objective. And if it is, it would be a very small piece of this whole project.
Okay.
But I can't give you a guarantee, but I almost can.
Okay. Did you?
Right, yeah, and he's correct. There's no guarantee on something like that unless you write it into the ordinance. You know, that hours are, of operation can only happen from this hour to this other hour. Anything's possible with an ordinance, with a PD, so that's just something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
So it just visually and size-wise, is this, so on the west side of 35, you have all these, seems like this kind of building. Is this sort of a jumping over I-35 of those types of buildings? And is that, am I correct to think that way, that this is going to be kind of the same thing that's on the other side, and now it's jumped?
That is, in concept, that is correct. Yes, this is really what is happening with the, excuse me, especially in the material, the high-end material. It's the same type of concept. It's really a showroom. showing marble and all that material. It's kind of, this area is turning into that type of synergy. And that's why we had to pick up the design to make sure that that brings those type of tenants in. And the leases of these things are much higher than standard office distribution, which this is not. Being this flex hybrid, you are correct. It is the same type of condition that is going on.
And it's a good project for you because that area is becoming known for that.
It absolutely is. I mean, the design center, City of Dallas is actually across the street, and that it is creating this synergy, and it's a great place for people to go and look at products, and it's a great convenience of being there at 635 and 35.
So I guess maybe just ask you, because the challenge that's presented to us, and to me anyway, is that it's presented, at least from the planning perspective, as not being consistent with we just went through a process of creating a strategic plan.
Right.
And this is not in concert with that plan.
I understand.
So it's like, and it's a block away from the jewel of our city, the historical park. It's sort of an entrance to the city. And so that's sort of what I'm struggling with is how to weigh those things. I'm just curious as to how you might respond to that.
Well, and we did think about that. And that was probably one of our longest delays, to make sure that the quality of the flex hybrid system and the buildings, we're adding much more glass, clear story to the buildings. We are improving the site, adding landscaping in. We are also attentive to to what it looks like at night, like I've repeated before. But also, I just wanted to state that all service vehicles have a GPS that is designed for their type of service vehicle. That GPS would not lead you through Ford Road. It would lead you out to Ford Road to LBJ. Those are all large, any of those type of vehicles that are coming through, they know better than it's already pre-programmed in that. And we have dealt with that before in the past, and that is something that is been utilized, and which was nice with our technology. But what we're trying to do is bringing long-term value to the city of Farmers Branch, bringing this product, and it's convenient for the Metroplex to having this location for materials and expensive materials. It's not like a retail center that we're only selling a couple of $1,000s worth of products. This is a range between 10 to 100 grand worth of materials.
Okay. And Marcos, I guess again, I'm struggling with this versus the comprehensive plan. Mm-hmm. Is this like a complete left turn? Like, is this, if we go with this, it would be like, why did we do the plan kind of thing? Because it's completely different use? Or is this like an adjacency? Is this like close but not quite? And given that this is, I'm struggling with that, trying to reconcile the two things.
In my opinion, it's a complete left turn from what our comprehensive plan is calling for. Not to mention that, but also how the PD is already currently written. So it isn't to say, again, I think we all understand that the comprehensive plan is a guide. It's not a law. It's not an ordinance. So it's something that we did spend a lot of time on and looked at. Could something else potentially come into this location? Absolutely, absolutely. It introduces a new type of vehicle. Not to say that 18-wheelers did not drive through this area. I don't think many did. I think their traffic analysis that they provided does. We have some details about that in our staff report as well. It brings down the number of the typical vehicles that you would see if these buildings were 100% full, but it brings another type of vehicle that's not that common in this area. But again, going back to the comprehensive plan, this is not what the comp plan is calling for. So it's, in my opinion, it's a definite left turn.
Marcus, along those same, can you describe what the comprehensive plan envisions on this track. Describe that building as you think it might be better.
Sure. So, again, going back to more of your typical office, high-rise office use, which again, I know the market dictates a lot of this type of stuff, but that is really what the comprehensive plan is calling for. It's calling for more office, retail, shopping center, large footprint type use.
How would the industrial property right across the street from that look in appearance?
That's it. Do we want to look like that? Is that the look we're looking for? Is that what we want our city to be? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. And if that is, then absolutely, we're in the right forum to go ahead and recommend approval and go that route.
Well, we have an office building right across the street.
Mhm.
And I'm,
Struggling with the, no, and I understand too. I think every city is going to be different. Unfortunately, and I shouldn't say unfortunately, but we share a boundary with Dallas. And so we have no, we have no say on what happens on the Dallas side, but we do on the Farmers Branch side. It's very similar to Ford Road. Ford Road isn't, even though that road looks like it's maintained by us, it is not maintained by us. That is Dallas's road. So as those trucks are going to be traveling up and down that road, that is not for us to maintain. Now, again, I believe residents, I believe other folks, they utilize that road also as well. But that is not going to be something that we'll be maintaining. So, I mean, those are things that we have to consider also. A lot of this falls on Dallas's side in the sense of road maintenance and as far as the aesthetics and what the uses are that are going to be surrounding that area.
is the city boundary, I think I see where it is.
I can draw it out for you too. This black line
Right.
is the city boundary. You can see it makes a 90-degree turn.
Right.
And then comes down. So this section of Ford Road is not our road. That is all Dallas, City of Dallas. City of Dallas also, everything that you see on this side is
Right.
City of Dallas, and then everything to the south is City of Dallas. The only thing we have control over is what you see in this corner here, and that's it.
Could the strategic plan not be wrong? I mean, when you talk about high-rise office
Sure.
and what's happening right now where building owners are handing over the keys to lenders throughout the country, and it's just really just beginning. You know, this is just going to be, some blood baths going on out there in our town and other towns. If that's what it's saying that we want there is high-rise office,
Well,
I'm just not
retail,
sure that
it's-
that's, what's that?
I think it's high-rise office
Or, okay, so.
or retail.
Or retail.
Right.
And as far as retail, that's a challenging location.
Mm-hmm.
That's down there. It says you got to take the access road, the Whip Chapel, the thing that, it's hard to imagine what retail would go in there. So it could be this could be a pretty good use for this location. I mean, I'm just
Sure.
kind of struggling with it, but.
Yeah, the only thing is, and again, if the architecture is right and we feel comfortable with the look and the feel of it, aesthetically speaking, they could bring the Taj Mahal of warehouses and distribution centers, and it's going to look nice. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. I think from our perspective, again, architecture is really important, but we're always going to look at the use, and we're going to look at the existing conditions on the ground. And I think that's where, again, we just unfortunately can't support it from staff's perspective. But that's just our opinion and our stance.
Marcus, is that hotel, the hotel that's to the east of, it's on the freeway, I can't remember the name of it.
Wyndham?
But they paid their water bill recently. I mean, once upon a time, those people were behind on their water bill. And we housed homeless people during the pandemic in that hotel. Is that hotel for sale? I'm thinking that is absolutely the worst location for a hotel on that freeway. And it's never had good success. And I'm trying to envision what we could build under the new plan that would be better than this,
No, understood.
even though this does not fit. And I look to the north and I see the creek there, and I know people that live on that creek.
Mhm.
And we have trouble with industrial odor on our west side coming from Dallas right now. So when I think about any industrial, especially light manufacturing, that's what bothers me. I don't want to see any light manufacturing where somebody puts on a second shift and they work from 11 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning, and they take the Ford Road north through Farmers Branch, get on Farmers Branch Lane, cross the railroad track, and they wake all those people up all night long.
Understood. Well, the hotel does fall outside the boundary of this area, so, and I'm not sure, I don't have any details on the hotel itself. But if this board was to provide support, and again, this is a PD amendment, so if there's a concern of hours or if there's a concern of different uses, now's the time that you can provide that feedback and add that into the PD. You could say, you do not want to see, if this is going to get approved, you're going to set a condition on the hours, or if you want to see this approved, you're going to set a condition on any type of improvements that you want to see. Now's the time to make that recommendation, and that's something that we would take forward to the city council.
Showroom space is different than light manufacturing, in my mind. Why did we mention light fabrication and assembly? Is that a requirement? Tell me what that means. I think you know where I'm going with this.
I know exactly where you're going with this. And the leases alone, on the high-end lease, this does not talk to that type of tenant. The leases are extreme. This is high-end lease. To lease this space is much more substantial than, I could take you to Railhead Park over in Fort Worth. That's exactly what that is for. High industrial. This is not. This is a showroom type of hybrid, flex hybrid space.
What kind of build out would be in these buildings? Would it be 30% build out or 40 or?
Absolutely. I mean, these can do a lot of things. That a lot of the offices, a lot of the companies are combining, and I did this at Mercantile Park in Fort Worth, that we had one area that it had quite a few office employees that do share the building, and we do have this opportunity to share and put in large offices in this, and the showroom. That all goes in together. And any manufacturing part or any of that of a second shift and all that, that doesn't happen on these type of buildings. That would be very rare. The cost of leasing the building is not really applicable to that type of tenant. The type of tenant that's coming in is going to have a much more office build out and showroom to show their tenants, and these have to show well. And that's why we've increased all the landscaping to compete. You know, we're here to compete against all the other ones to make this another step. And I agree with you, late at night, this is not going to be a second or a third shift type of operation.
What would you guesstimate the build out to be average over this?
Average for most of these, I would say probably between about 20%. It could be the average on that, between 15 to 20%. It could be a lot more than that. We can easily put a mezzanine in this and put a second floor.
But I would say a lot of these may have 100% air conditioning because of the sensitivity of the product.
Right.
So that, it's not finish out as in office, but it costs a lot of money to accommodate the usage of some of these tenants just because of the product. If you go over on the other side of 35, those stones, they're sensitive to that heat. And so some of these showrooms have that need in the back of the warehouse to have the product stored, so.
In conditioned space.
Yeah.
So we're spending more money.
Climate control.
We're doing it in the conditioned space, and we're doing that, we did that again, putting a R25 roof on the building so it can be converted to full AC, and thank you for bringing that up.
Well, Marcus, what I'm just trying to do in my mind is picture, what else are we going to build there? there's poor access over there. Ford Road is an issue, but Ford Road could be solved. Just put a cul-de-sac right there at the bridge and close Ford Road on our side of it.
Right.
So, I mean, that would keep trucks out of the neighborhood. But I don't see retail. I'm not so sure even low-rise office would be acceptable there, and that's what's there right now. I don't know what the occupancy, does anybody
Well-
know the occupancy of those other buildings?
Well, it's the same thing. You know, we are providing retail and we are providing offices in this condition, but in a different form, in a larger product of countertop, larger companies that are showing their product, and this is what this is. It's a not a heavy industrial facility, and I agree with you. We did look back and we did drive the neighborhood. I've walked all the sites. And I know that you guys have looked into the hotel across the street and possibly purchasing that. And we've looked at that multiple kinds. And I knew who did the development was John Ulick. This was his private hotel back in the day. My dad owned an architectural firm since the early 70s. Worked with him forever, unfortunately, just like him. I worked with a family business, and he passed away. My dad passed away back in 2017. But I remember this very well on the hotel, and I know the hotel is in dire straits, and the hotel needs to be converted to a different type of more efficient hotels. And this could be multiple sites of hotels is what we maybe preconceived that could happen. I know that that's the reason we had this building that's positioned there, is to give that opportunity for that piece of property to build value the way that we're facing Building C, to make sure that the inner service court is contained, but we're trying to be good. We are going to be good neighbors on.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so if you go to you go to the actual ordinance under number 1, it's under section 1C1. That's where they're trying to add warehouse, distribution, light fabrication, and assembly by right. And the way the ordinance is written right now, it's prohibited south of Christian. So if there's a desire to add warehouse and not do light fabrication or assembly or leave distribution out, you always have that ability to do that as well. Or you can keep all of that by right. That's essentially what this is asking.
Can you require a minimum finish out in those buildings?
On the inside of the building? When we start talking about zoning, we only look at the exterior and, it's a PD, so without an attorney here, I'm not sure how
Okay, well, that's fine.
specific you can get.
I'm thinking out loud, but have y'all talked to the college at all about their objections and what they'll live with? I mean, they've been there forever, and it's private school. I mean, if you're going to put a bunch of money into a deal there, you need to be talking to the neighbors.
One of the things that we do intend to do, I know there's a parking, you have an event hall, and I think it's shared parking, and we intend to continue to open that parking lot for after hours usage for this event hall. So we don't want to change that and take that away from the city, but we definitely need to talk to the college. Back to the question of usage, I hate to get into too many limitations because of our need to pay the bank at some point.
I understand.
But could we limit from manufacturing? I think we could do something like that. We certainly don't want the city to think we've given free rein to this group and they're going to go put a big manufacturer back there. We don't have any intention. It's all high-end users. And if we wanted to somehow caveat that with a down and dirty industrial use, that's just totally acceptable, because that's not who we're after. And I loved what you said. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. You should be on this side helping sell, because the keys to office buildings are going back every day, and it is a real challenge. We've I've been in that business, and I'm glad I'm not in it, because all of these office buildings in and around it are really struggling. Occupancy, banks that are trying to call notes. Some of those buildings, capital expenditures will never fix them. They're tired looking. You can clean them up the best you can. And there's been a fundamental change for how these are used. So we just think this product type is a real high-end niche for this site. It is below, not below grade, but it is below a sight line if you come off that ramp. So retail is a challenge because you got to exit so far back and there's really no good circulation. But I'm not poo-pooing the comp plan, don't get me wrong.
We did read what the college is looking for about the screen wall between us and their property. We can easily put up a solid masonry wall that they were asking for 10 feet high. We're accepting that. We want to be good neighbors with the college across the street. We do want to be good neighbors, especially with the baseball games that are going across. They're allowed to park their buses on the property, especially after hours. But we can put a screen wall, a full screen wall across that. We want to be good neighbors with them also on that, if they're looking for that separation. So we would actually have a 10-foot screen wall plus the 2 wing walls. So we would really encapsulate that area completely from the college for long-term value.
Let me say one more thing.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. One of the things that I think is important for the park and for the college is that the amount of lighting, that is a real deterrent for bad people. Light this property up, and we're going to really light it. And for safety purposes and security, I'm not saying it's going to be a stadium lighting, but the amount of lighting we're going to put in there certainly will run off people who are looking for trouble, whether that be in the neighboring park or whether that be in the school. I drove through the school many times, and there's students walking at all times. So I just think that will help that whole environment.
Commissioners, we've had quite a bit of discussion from some folks. If there's some folks who hadn't spoken up, if want to say a little piece, I think that might be appropriate to just kind of gauge where folks are at and see if we might sort of move potentially towards an action or towards tabling. So I'd really like, if that's okay, to hear a little bit from folks.
Yeah, so this feels like a very transitionary space, and it looks like the property to the direct north is already potentially a showroom. Is that correct? It looks like the cabinet source or a similar occupancy to what we're already looking at. And
It's
then,
an office where, that white building up to the due north.
That's a true tilt wall warehouse building.
Yeah, but it's.
No glass, it's the old fashioned.
And it's manufacturing on the inside. It used to be an old manufacturing plant.
so the property that we're looking at is doing a similar usage to the property to the north already.
Right, the PD doesn't allow for that type of use south of Christian, but allows for it north of Christian. North of Christian with an SUP, that is. So this area here, absolutely, it's following the PD requirements. Everything down here, we're held to the PD at the end of the day.
And I mean, to me, the more important neighbors to think about is the neighborhood to the north and the bridge going over the creek. I think that if we're talking about limiting the operational hours, we wouldn't have as much traffic going over that bridge. And then the objection we received from the Dallas College talked about if there was approval that the city would recommend flipping the parking or the entrance for the trucking. Is there a reason that they are under the impression that we would recommend the trucks be flipped from the proposal?
You know, I think there might be a bit of confusion on that. So just to be sure, the school is in this location here, and this is the location of the building that's adjacent to the school property. They may have been talking about possibly this building here, Building C, which Building C is the one that we had concerns about, only because, again, we would prefer to see that flipped around and that Building C actually be more forward of of the right-of-way.
So you're saying the college's objection is a little bit off because they were misunderstanding what your recommendation was?
Yeah, correct. I think what they're asking for, let me see if I can find. Yeah, it says the applicant has proposed a 10-foot screening wall along the portion of Ford Road in front of the loading docks in accordance with that. Okay, however, this request is approved, and given the visibility of the portion of the site, staff recommends that the building be reoriented. They say, unfortunately, the staff recommendation would then have the loading docks facing DCC, but that's not true. I think they had gotten this mixed up. We were looking at this is building C. That's the one that we would prefer to see. So if that is flipped, those loading docks are actually facing a parking lot that goes to the hotel is really ultimately. If this was flipped on this side, there's really nothing. There are no dock doors that are facing DCC.
So the only true relevant objection that the college has is the traffic.
That is correct. They are concerned about the traffic. This is Ford Road is their only access to actually go to the school. There isn't another access point to get to DCC. So there is concern about the truck traffic. Unfortunately, again, I think where our hands are tied is that a lot of Ford Road is not our road. That is Dallas's road.
And just a point of clarification that it's Dallas Christian College.
Dallas Christian College, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
That's right.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Procedurally, I mean, it seems like if we were to approve this, everybody seems to be on board that we'd want to try to figure out some way to restrict the hours of operation, and we wouldn't want heavy trucks lumbering down the road at all hours. The potential noise of trucks loading and unloading late at night, and even for the hotel guests. And perhaps limits on the type of fabrication that takes place in terms of noise and noxious odors. Are those things that could be incorporated in?
Sure.
in
Yeah,
the
sure. You
approval?
can always.
And general noise abatement.
Yeah, noise abatement, absolutely. We do have codes that already address certain noises and odors. When it comes to the types of uses, you can always restrict certain uses to SUP, or you can just prohibit them outright, or you can allow certain ones by right. Going back to what I had mentioned earlier, in this particular request, now they're looking for light fabrication, warehouse distribution to be allowed by right, because at this moment right now, it is not allowed at all. So again, that's where the commission can pose restrictions on that or not. It's completely up to the commission.
Marcos, would that change the zoning for the entire city or just this one plot?
The plan development.
For the
Just
plan
this one.
development, just for the plan development.
Thoughts, Heidi?
Yeah, can you point out where the 10-foot wall would go?
Sure. Yeah, so there would be, what the applicant just suggested right now is that there would be a 10-foot wall where my cursor is, up to this point here. That's where Dallas's property, Dallas Christian College ends at that moment, at that point. There's also another proposed wall along this area here. Actually, let me start at this point, and you'll see where it says screen wall right here to about this point, to this point here. And that's, again, to block the dock doors. And that's where they were talking about 10-foot LED lights, same material that's used on the building, so everything would still look very similar.
Okay, so then my question would be really for the applicant. And this is kind of going back to the conversation a few weeks ago in City Council about the Luna Road apartment complex being 7 foot. And just the thought of possibly adding in some mature trees on the other side of that wall or the eastern red cedars or something, because if we're going to add a wall, is it possible to have some sort of foliage or something on the
opposite side?
On the opposite side.
We have done that before, and that is a good point. We can put an island, and what we typically would like to do instead of the eastern red cedars is actually put maybe a more of a plant that is more of a canopy or a year-round tree. The eastern red cedars do grow fast. We do have a small area for them, and we could adjust, we could add for like track for building C, we could add another 10 feet to that, and then add those in there, and that's a good point. I like that. That gives it depth on both sides. So it is 10 feet from that, but that would also procure any of the, it would keep all the, it would give the wall a depth that we've done before, especially around with single family. It's got long-term good value.
Yeah.
We can easily do that. And the same thing for the college. We'd have provided that, and we would do that along the fence line there, and to provide a fence plus, which actually it's a screen wall. And then that landscaping there, we would like to do some variety of trees in there to give it some sort of shadow, especially during the day.
One last thing to address the objections that have been expressed. Their concern is traffic. Marcos said that we don't really control Ford Road, but we do have Christian Parkway that is more of a direct route to that college. Would you be envisioning more entrance of trucks coming from Christian Parkway or Ford Road?
Ford Road, because that's what we've designed this for. We thought about that very diligently. You can see where the access point, let's see, here it is. This is where they come in and then they leave out and go toward the south. That's what we provided, that driveway there. That is going to be their main intent. And the other driveway is really for fire safety and life safety on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kind of in listening to the commissioners, I think you summed it up very nicely. You've mentioned several times this rhythm of design, I think
Yes.
was the phrasing that you utilized. I wonder if you would extend that concept just a little to help the commissioners into a rhythm of the day. So timing is an issue. You said you've done this with many other tenants and many other places. If you would indulge us to walk us through, I know you don't know all the details, but an imagined day at this site. Take us from midnight to midnight. What's happening here? What's the look and feel? What's the quality of what's happening in our city and this particular location?
Absolutely. And I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to describe that. If it is let's say this is a countertop company that does take building B, and let's talk about that as a tenant. That tenant would typically have, where my cursor is, that would be the entry showroom, large volume space that you walk into that would be 16 to 20 foot tall with showing the material, could be a second floor mezzanine for executives with a staircase. With that type of quality. The clients would show up to the facility. It would be very easily with the signage on the building.
And give us a timeline, again, like if you would, we start at midnight.
No, we started at midnight, no one's there, okay. So we would start from midnight to 6 o'clock in the morning. There would probably be none during those operational hours. Probably most of the employees would probably show up between 7 and 8 o'clock normally. It'd be a one-shift operation. The showroom would probably start around about 9 o'clock for the people to come and look at the showroom and look at the materials. With that said, the employees would give an opportunity, and we have done areas where the employees can stay on site and have break rooms available that we present with to make sure that either they have that opportunity or go out to the city and use conveniently downtown restaurants. During that day, let's say we're at noon, majority of all of our tenants have come in and out. Then you have the afternoon tenants that would come in or the prospective buyers of those materials. And from, let's say, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, that's generally where everybody is essentially looking at the materials. You don't want to be there at 5 o'clock. You want to go home with kids. The staff would probably wrap up the day, and majority of the staff that was in the back goes home. The staff in the front and the executives do their business, and around about, I would say, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, it would be a vacated, empty building during that time.
And in terms of those driveways that you showed us with the trucking traffic,
Right.
when is that shipping and receiving typically?
Typically, the operations, the hour of operations of that facility, and most of them would be between, you would start between about 8 to 4 o'clock normally, that they would receive products. Remember, they have to unload, they have to unload the service truck. And most of these containers are smaller containers, especially if they're being shipped over from overseas. And those containers in that area is usually a smaller vehicle or smaller type of, they would unload a 22-foot truck or container and put all the materials inside. We have provided ramps for all the tenants that do need that, if it's needed. And so they can either move the vehicle inside, or if there's anything that needs to be moved, hauled inside, especially out of the weather, that condition is provided.
Thank you for.
That's a great question. I've been doing this for a long time. I've never been asked that, and that's a really good question. I respect that, and to give you, is really just a one operation type of, normally tenants, they can't afford to stay overnight and do a two operation facility. Any other questions I'm here to answer?
Is this retail or wholesale operation, and is there a retail checkout front of the building?
There could be a mercantile type of, there could be a mercantile, but most of that type of, for the services which you're talking about, we would probably lend that out to the service court in the back, especially if they need, let's say they do need a 2-foot dock, we would adjust that out in the back for the tenant being specifically on that.
Is this contractor pickup, or does my wife go over there and pick out the
Both.
tile and buy it?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. If she's going over there, she's spending some pretty good money.
She does.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we did our house, Commissioner, I went over to the other side of 35 with my wife and spent 3 brain-damaging hours in that showroom trying to pick stone. And when I left, she had not decided, and I left, and she stayed another 2 hours looking at stone with a designer, picked the stone, left, and the designer placed the order, but there was no checking out. They said, this is what we want, and they went back and they brought the bulk out, and then we had a contractor put it in the house. So I think there will be private viewings, there'll be designer viewings, there'll be contractor viewings, but I don't envision now, there could be a checkout, but I don't envision that. You know, there's a lot of those over on Love Field, near Love Field, that have products that contractors go in and they actually buy there. Those are more of very small users, 3,000, 4,000 square feet versus 30, 40, 50,000 in these buildings. So I don't think that's going to happen where we have a cashier at the front checking people out. It's not what I would envision.
Thank you.
All right, so commissioners, how are we feeling? Do we feel we need to, I'm just giving you some options so that we are understanding, we can arrive at where we need to arrive at. We can always table and have further discussion. I think with help of staff, if you have conditions, I think staff would be willing to help us appropriately word or craft those to meet our desired intent. If there are specific conditions that we want, we can ensure that those are met. Also, staff has recommended denial, and that's also an option on the table. So I'm trying to present our suite of options, and we can have further discussion if need be, or we can start to entertain some action and try to move from there and get a sense of where we're at.
Can I do a summation and then I won't talk anymore?
I don't believe you.
Well, my biggest concern is if we deny this, my concern is the location and what is the alternative down the road. That's my biggest concern here. Having said that, if whatever we decide is going to end up going to council anyhow, and my goal then is to give them as much information and forethought as we could possibly give them, give these people an opportunity to go try to make their deal with the neighbors so that the neighbors really understand this is our concept, this is what we could do to the traffic, the walls, because there's a number of students that live on that campus. I don't know how many use that roadway to go back and forth every day. I really don't know that, but I know there's a bunch that live on campus there. So that would put them in a better light if they had the backup of the college or some agreement with them when they ultimately present this to council. But again, I don't know what else we could build there in the next 10 years that's across from Dallas Industrial. There is a way in my mind to close off Ford Road to keep them from going into the residential neighborhood. Make a walking bridge. We could still use the parking to the south. In event parking, we turn the bridge into a walking bridge and put a cul-de-sac down there where if a truck has to turn around, they just go down then turn around. And they can't cross the bridge or something like that. But I think there is viability here. I can't think of an alternative, and that's my quandary. So if these people want to take the time to do some more research for when this gets to council, I let them do the work, and we can approve it subject to whatever the council wants to do, and then they can decide about the limitations with our recommendations. But again, that's my biggest concern. So what else can we build there?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, would anyone like to make a go of?
I've kind of tracked 4 potential limitations. Would be the hours, maybe hours of operation 6A to 10P, which would be like a, Okay, so some level of hours. Warehouse and showroom only, so eliminate the fabrication and assembly. The wall between the college, and then Heidi, what you had mentioned, didn't exactly follow where that wall was, but the great idea of putting the trees outside. Were there any others? I mean, as a general, those were the 4 I could remember.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, fabrication, if they're making countertops, they have to fabricate them, so that's called fabrication, and that has to go on, or else they can't cut them and finish the edges.
So something more like manufacturing?
But so, yeah,
Like,
limits on
no.
manufacturing, anything involving, I don't know, we'll leave it to the experts here to.
What we'll do is we'd like to limit the hours of operations. And then make sure that this is clean operation, then make sure that this is, if there's anything like that you just talked about, it would be all inside in a conditioned space. And make sure that appeases the college next door, and make sure that we're not a nuisance of next door. Make sure that the glare next door, that we have appropriate lighting in there, and also given availability, we would like to give availability of the parking for the overflow for the college. We want to be a good neighbor on this, absolutely. So we've already decided that we will do those limitations. We'd be grateful for that. It'll help us.
So what I hear you saying, and let's see if we can craft this potentially, is that you would like to limit hours of operation. You would like to limit the operations that are having, or the use,
Correct.
to limit any manufacturing components. Your masonry wall, again, with the college, working with them to provide additional screening and additional trees supporting that area, and then continuation with both the city and Dallas Christian College for overflow parking available at your site. So those
That
are.
is correct.
Okay. Did I miss anything from either the things you're excited to offer again?
Oh, we're
here?
excited to offer this. Absolutely, we are, yes.
And did I miss anything from the commissioners that are items? Marcus, in terms of, as we proceed forward, understanding this is a planned development, those types of things can frequently be included in planned developments. Is it appropriate for us to explicitly define them now with some language?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Like when we say limited hours, we wouldn't want to just say limited hours. We would want to actually define those hours.
Sure.
The no manufacturing, actually, manufacturing isn't allowed anyway. They were looking at light fabrication and assembly, warehouse and distribution. That might sit well. I mean, that might work well with what we're talking about right now. So there's really not much change on that unless anyone wanted to add that as
SUP.
as an SUP. If you want to do, yeah, exactly. I don't want to tell y'all which direction to go, but just know that you couldn't always add an SUP to that. As far as additional screening, yeah, you would just want to let us know what type of screening that is, a masonry wall, a wooden fence, and then there'll be some greenery also. You would just let us know that as well. Outside storage, they've already talked about not having any type of outside storage, and I believe it's already prohibited anyway.
Yes.
And I'm talking about outside storage of containers, empty containers, or containers that are just going to be sitting out there. And the overflow parking, you can always mention that also as well. Yeah.
All right. Anyone, how are we feeling about special use permits for the assembly, or do we feel that's by right?
Agreed.
Okay.
Madam Chair, have y'all closed the public hearing?
We have not,
No,
so
okay.
I appreciate the reminder, because
Gotcha.
I actually brought that up in study session as well. But those are items that we're hearing, so thank you for that reminder. All right, do we need to discuss further the types of conditions, the nature of it? Do we feel confident after we close this that we can craft appropriate language?
I think whether we have the language or not that the staff would choose. I mean, is this a timing thing where we could table this till the next meeting, give you guys 2 weeks to get crafted the language, come to us recommending approval maybe at that point with the appropriate language? Or do we take a chance on getting it right now? I mean, we're just sort of,
No, that's fine. You can take a chance now, and we can, as long as you let us know generally what the
Okay, so it doesn't
issues
have to
are.
be the
Right.
exact
And then
language.
yeah, absolutely. And we would address that with our attorney, put that into the ordinance, and then that is what would actually go to city council. So as long as you guys tell us, generally speaking, and I shouldn't say generally, some specifics, I got to have some
Hours.
specifics, right, on some of it, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And again, thank you for the reminder about a public meeting. As it is a public meeting, I should also offer opportunity for the public to speak. Is there any comment from the public? All right, and commissioners, I think we're at a point where we might entertain a motion to close.
make a motion to close the public meeting portion.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor to close the public hearing? And that is unanimous. Thank you all for that. Thank you again for, I mentioned it in study, to please don't let me forget. And now, I think the key issue I'm hearing that we don't have that staff needs is those hours of operation. Anyone have you had some thoughts?
I would ask the applicant what their thoughts might be on this area.
Mr. Commissioner, I was going to ask what you did, which is, would you mind letting us work with the staff and craft this over the course of the next week or so, something that we think fits and marries what you want with what we think is doable? Just to have some time to help craft that, because we've heard what you said, we think we understand it, you understand where we're coming from, and if we can work with the staff and then present it back to you.
I think what I'm sensing from staff is that they would like to have those hours in the ordinance, and we can table it, but if we move forward, now, again, city council is going to hear this, and so you do have some opportunity to kind of present it, but, if we can put some bounds on it a little bit, I think that would maybe give staff a little easier sleeping at night.
As long as we're okay with moving the council date back, that would be the only other thing, is that if we don't take action tonight, it does affect the upcoming city council date.
Yeah, and I was only going to do some research and talking to some of the tenants that we think fit this, because there may be some usage that go into after hours when people can go after work. And I don't mean late, I'm talking about until 7 or 8 o'clock.
Sure.
And I don't know whether to limit that now, and then
Well, if you guys limited the hours to what you feel is appropriate, it doesn't it's a recommendation. It doesn't necessarily mean that it stands true the entire time. We could always bring that, after we figure out something else, we could always bring that option to city council, but also let them know
What we have recommended.
yeah,
So, we're a recommending body.
Let's recommend 6
Yep.
a.m. to 10 p.m.
is that
6 a.m. to 10 p.m. is what I'm hearing?
6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah. So
That may be an issue with college, kids staying in the dormitories at night. I don't know that, but I'm just saying that might want to be the discussion with college. So there's no misunderstanding.
Yeah, and so I think what I'm hearing in this potential 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. is that is again, we're a recommending body. City council may come back with an additional restrictive.
Absolutely.
I think it is incumbent upon you, as the commissioner states, to do your due diligence with the college, and that may help you in those hours. But I think this may be a reasonable thing to proceed on in a recommendation.
That's what we'd like to do that.
yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion, or if you need any help, I did take notes. If you want me to do that, I'm happy to do so.
I'd be happy to, so just so if I get that, so one would be the hours of operation, is that correct?
Yes, and we've set those as,
And we would set, I think we said 6A to 10P as a, and I'm just sort of reviewing
Yep.
it first.
thank you.
And then the description seems like it's okay as is. It says fabrication, so we don't have to do anything there, is that right?
I think there was a suggestion that those assembly and fabrication would be under a special use permit, is what I
Assembly,
heard.
Fabrication or
Is that-
SUP.
Okay.
And fab, write this down. And then the walls, the retaining, so what were we recommending there specifically? The retaining wall for the college. 10-foot retaining.
Masonry.
10-foot masonry retaining wall between the college.
It's a screening wall, not a retaining wall.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, exactly.
That's okay, we're
different.
working together, thank you. And the additional trees, greenery, supporting those masonry walls, both in that location and Heidi, I think you said along with the other wall as well as
And
possible.
those trees were on the outside of the walls. Out-
Facing college.
Okay.
Just for clarification, shade trees, or we're talking just the shrubs? Like
Any kind of landscaping material,
any type of, okay.
unless you guys have a recommendation.
No, it's however, whatever you guys feel is most appropriate along that wall on the DCC. That's going to be pretty much facing the DCC side. I believe you guys were talking about hollies. Eastern red cedars is what they were envisioning on that side. If that's, or if you're looking for shade trees also, we could be that specific.
Yeah, and I heard them
Eastern-
also say a variety of species to provide some visual interest.
Okay.
So I think that.
Maybe, yeah, that's fine. We can work with that.
And city council will get to see that in a way that we're envisioning and making recommendations, and city council will see that and be able to move as appropriate.
Absolutely.
And then, again, we appreciate the flexibility in continuing to utilize that parking area, both for city events, especially with our new event center, as well as being a good neighbor, as you mentioned, to the Dallas Christian College for their parking needs overflow with events.
Can that one, is that an additional item? Can we list that as a requirement?
Again, I think you can, if you mention that,
Right.
that's something that I'll talk to Pete and let them know that
Yeah.
was a recommendation from the P and Z. If it makes it into the ordinance, or if it's something that council has to discuss on a separate,
Really?
agenda item, that's something that we can always address. But mentioning it now will just ensure that we're not going to forget about it, or,
Okay.
Excuse me, just one quick question on the usage. Office, warehouse, showroom, assembly is okay, but it's the light fabrication that falls under the SUP?
It was just assembly and light fabrication.
Assembly,
So
Simply,
just
we
light-
said,
so
okay,
just
it's the
light fabrication.
fabrication specifically.
Fabrication.
Fabrication special use permit. Thank you for the clarification. All right. So thank you, Marcos, for volunteering and taking diligent notes.
He's
to-
Marcos, I'm Marcus.
Marcus.
He's Marcos. Marcos.
Correct, correct. Thank you. As it
So-
gets later in the evening. You
So I'd
have
like to
keep me
make
honest.
like to make a motion
Okay.
that we approve. I'm not,
Recommend approval.
recommend approval with the following stipulations. Hours of operation, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Fabrication by SUP. 10-foot screening wall between the college and the facility.
Masonry.
10-foot masonry screening wall between the college and the facility. Trees did we just, outside the
Variety of tree species.
varieties of tree species outside the screening walls, and overflow parking agreements with the city and the Dallas Community College, or Dallas Christian College.
Yes. Thank you so much, Marcus, for your putting that forth. Commissioners,
Second what he said.
thank you so much. Any further discussion on the item before we move to vote? Okay, with seeing no further discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you all. This will go to City Council
This will go to the city council on the 19th, March 19th.
March 19th.
For a public hearing.
For a public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all for your diligent work in serving the city. With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:46 PM. Thank you.
All right, thank you.